But sometimes I told you so isn't enough. Sometimes I told you so isn't enough. And he had a very subpar combine. Some could make the argument that Kayshon didn't even really work out for it. Guys, I don't really care about the 40 time. There are a lot of dudes that go out there receiver and run a 4.5 and are good. Jordan Addison is still a really good player. He ran a 4.5, 4.55, I think. Dude's going to be a good player. There are a lot of dudes who don't necessarily test well in the 40. But the 4.67 that Kayshon Boutte ran, guys, is abysmal. And I can make the argument that his 4.5 flat and then 4.67 is kind of a mirror image of his LSU career. Starts out somewhat promising. Maybe he can get a little bit better and be the best wide receiver. Maybe he can get into the 4.4s in this 40. But, guys, a 4.67 is absolutely abysmal. I think his official time was, a 4.55? I mean, that's not bad. I mean, he's still good. But the biggest thing over the weekend was not that for me. So I talked to an assistant GM this weekend, and me and my wife were going out, Saturday for our birthday. And, we had a lot of things going on. And so I'm just sitting there. We're watching the game. We're sitting down having dinner. We're watching the game, whatever. And it was awesome. Great night. And after the combine was over, and I'm just texting with an assistant GM when we're out to dinner, and I said, listen, Kayshon Boutte should have just stayed at home. And that's really before everything that had transpired and gone on. He did not interview well. If any of the media around here wants to challenge me on this, just ask anybody that you know in the NFL. And they will tell you that Kayshon Boutte had horrendous interviews this week. Horrendous. Awful. That's not even the more glaring thing to me, because I think that you know the kind of vibe that you get around Kayshon. Guys, he had a 29-inch vert. He had a 29-inch vert. Somewhere in these accolades of trophies and rings that I have in this studio, I will find you the official vertical that I had the last time I did it. Guys, it was 32. I'm a fat white dude who can't jump. Bottom line is, I'm not saying that I'm some super athlete or I'm sure some of you had done verts before. I would assume that most of you did not have a 29. Guys, it's awful. Starts begging the question is, what was going on in that locker room during the season? Kayshon Boutte was pouting. He led the SEC in drop rate. He led your team in drops. He led the SEC in drops. And you want to tell him, and all season long, the only thing I continued to hear, Blake, you got to find ways to get Kayshon Boutte the ball. Well, then you see him make a play like he did against Georgia. That's a Kayshon Boutte that when he actually gave a damn what he can do. But, guys, having a 9-foot, 10-inch broad jump and a 29-inch vert screams to me and GMs around the league that he just doesn't give a shit. And there are parts of me that says, is LSU better with addition by subtraction? Like him, love him, hate him, Kayshon Boutte did not have a good week. And I really, really do wish the best for him. I really do. But there are things that he's got to fix. And majority of them are off the field and just being a dude. Guys, there's no way. And I told you this, when was December? So we're in March. So 3 months ago. No, even a little bit more than that. 3.5 months ago, when he said he wasn't coming, said he wasn't leaving, then he did leave and just hoed his teammates out. Then I'm told by a coach on the LSU staff that all of his stuff was in his locker at LSU. And then when they go to Orlando, he goes in the locker room and gets all of his stuff, all of his belongings, and just pieces out. when it's official. He signs with Drew Rosenhaus. Guys, he's got to get his head on straight. He's got to get his head on straight. There's no way he's a first-round pick. Zero. I shouldn't say zero because you have teams out there like the Cleveland Browns that have been notoriously bad at drafting. You've had multiple teams in the league that are horrible in drafting. I just can't foresee Kayshon Boutte going round 1. So I hope that this is a wake-up call, a severe wake-up call for every player that's on LSU's roster. When you lace those cleats up, you got to give it everything you have. Because the Kayshon Boutte that we saw in that play versus Georgia literally does not jump a 29-inch vert. He just doesn't. So I don't know what the problem is now. He did have a really bad injury. But guys, we've seen dudes come back from worse than what he had. You know, I was listening to a podcast today where a guy had a spinal cord injury, came back and played 2 weeks, had no business playing in 2 weeks. And frankly, it even had that same type of injury almost happened and did happen to Seven Banks. Now, he didn't come back, but you have guys like Major Burns. You got a safety out there wearing a cowboy collar. Then he makes a mistake and runs down a dude against Alabama to, let's call it what it is, save you in that game. You got to care, man. You got to care. And we were talking about LSU baseball just a minute ago. We'll continue to talk about them later on in the show. But the bottom line is you see guys like Dylan Cruz, Tommy White, all these dudes, Christian Little for crying out loud, all these dudes that care, that are Paul Skeens, that are top 5 picks, if not top 3 picks, that care more about team, care more about their stock, care more about not just the name on the back of their jersey, but the front of their jersey. And look what they're doing. Nobody, and I mean this with all due respect to every athlete that's on LSU's campus, no athlete on LSU's campus is bigger than Dylan Cruz. Guys, he's going to be a number 1 overall pick. Nobody. Maybe Harold Perkins. Maybe. But there's no bigger superstar on LSU's campus more than Dylan Cruz. And that kid, all he does is go out there and work. Do you mean to tell me that Dylan Cruz, like I hear stories like, so I mean, I don't think that he will mind me saying this, but last year we had Tyler McManus, LSU's catcher on. We had him on like 4 or 5 times. And me and Tyler McManus are going back and forth last year. And I was like, and so we're just like texting, whatever. And I was like, yeah, hey, man, yeah, you can come on tomorrow. Let's do it. You know, we'll have some fun, kick some things around. So it's like, well, what you dudes doing, man, on your day off? And he's telling me that Dylan Cruz is in the batting cage along with Jordan Thompson, and they're drenched in sweat like they'd been there for 2 hours. Kayshon needs to take a page out of that playbook. It's an awful weekend by Kayshon. It's an awful weekend for what we saw. Now, there are dudes from LSU that had really good weekends. That same assistant GM said that of all the, 200 plus players or guys or interviews that they have inside the combine, that the best LSU player in the interview room and maybe best drill work that they saw all week was Jeray Jenkins. And what do we see from Jeray Jenkins in his LSU career? He might be one of the most clutch players that we've seen over the last, at minimum, 3 seasons, and a guy that actually gives a damn. And that kind of stuff is what gets you drafted. Let's say, hypothetically, Jeray Jenkins is a 6th, 7th round pick. Based off of what Jeray Jenkins just did, he might go into the 5th. Racey McMath screams that right now. And Jeray Jenkins had tons more production at LSU than Racey McMath did. It's a bad weekend. And if I'm any coach on that staff right now, I am going to each one of those players and saying, guys, I know that we beat down on you. I know that we beat down on you. And we yell at you, we scream at you, we call you Rudy Poos, we call you all these kinds of things all the time. But we do that to make you the best possible player that you can be. LSU came out with a video today of Harold Perkins squatting close to 450. 450. He's in there working his ass off. Everybody talked about Harold Perkins and this NIL thing, okay, when Harold Perkins was being recruited. Guys, he's not even going to pick up his checks. He doesn't give a shit about that. You know what real superstars care about? Winning, dominating, being the best. That's what they care about. And I know I'm long-winded on this Kayshon thing, but to wrap it all into this and to what the big picture is in all of this, I'm not saying addition by subtraction necessarily, or the scenario here is a massive thing, but I think it's addition by subtraction. So when there's a quick slant against Alabama on 3rd and 7 with 7.5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and LSU needs to go down and drive to stop the bleeding and just really just try to get at least a minimum of field goal so you don't let Alabama in that game, and Kayshon Boutte gator arms it and tucks because he doesn't want to be hit. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 more receivers on that roster that won't gator arm that thing and say, bring what you got and just try to take this ball out of my hands. You know, we take so many things for granted, right? The things that we take for granted the most. So we're talking about baseball 10, 20 minutes ago. Guys, that's what good teams and players are supposed to do. Tommy White comes up to bat and hits 2 Oppo Taco home runs. That's what good players do against inferior opponents. That's what they do. Dylan Cruz tonight on a 94-mile-an-hour fastball. It's not like this kid from Butler's just throwing up lollipops, an ephus pitch coming out there. He's hitting a 94-mile-an-hour pitch dead center at probably 105 plus miles per hour off the bat. Superstars give a damn. So when you're on your high horse, getting on Garrett Nussmeier or getting on Jaden Daniels, and their drops are insane, it's not always their fault. It's just not. Guys, we are 600. Let's just talk about when we started doing videos again and live streams. We are 651 episodes in. Do you know how many days I don't want to be in this thing? I'm tired. I'm worn out. You know, we got LSU spring practice on Thursday that we'll talk a lot about this week. LSU covering LSU baseball, women's basketball. Everybody has those scenarios. 2 kids, a wife, newborn. But people that actually care, I do wonder if Kayshon wants to play football. He's going to have to convince me that he wants to play football, because you're not a first-round pick. You're not a wide receiver 1 in the NFL right now. Now, is that due to injury? What does that due to? I don't know. But regardless of what it's due to, he needs to figure it out. All right. Let's do this. Let me transition really quickly. We'll stay on the football. Then we'll talk Derek Carr, and then we'll round it out with all this baseball talk and some basketball talk too. But I'll get to a couple comments before we transition. Chris Baker says spot on. Rob Boudreaux says hard work outworks talent that doesn't care. I agree with that. Holden Lee says I think he's a 3rd-round pick, honestly. Well, with that, I mean, you can't ignore that. Holden Lee says Achilles takes about 2 years to fully heal. He's definitely not 100%. He didn't have an Achilles. He didn't have an Achilles, Holden. He had a broken leg. He didn't have an Achilles. And yeah, you're right. An Achilles is a horrible injury, but he didn't have one. I mean, guys, he missed practices. I mean, nobody can force him to go to rehab. We literally had media members getting on. Listen to this. We had media members getting on Brian Kelly's case about Kayshon Boutte not rehabbing. I'm going to be honest with you. Ask Tony Trombetta. I don't know where Tony Trombetta is at. Maybe I should look this up. Hold on. Tony Trombetta was our oh, he's not in there anymore. But Tony Trombetta was Southeastern's I don't see where he is anymore. He was our medical guy. He was he built me back up when I tore my ACL, going into Southeastern, having to rebuild my knee. And he never forced me to go into rehab. You guys, the stupid nature of fans sometimes, and especially media. Oh, Brian Kelly isn't getting Kayshon Boutte to go to rehab. The hell? You got to want that for yourself. You got to want that for yourself. Nobody should have forced him to go to rehab. What you got to be on Kayshon for about going to rehab? Come on, man. Like, look, and I know what every one of you in here, or not all of you, but some of you in here will do. You will come in here and put the Miles Brennan cape back on me and say that I hated Miles Brennan. I never hated Miles Brennan. Never. Still don't hate Miles Brennan. But when my eyes tell me something and the real world hits you in the face, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? I mean, guys, we had media members freaking out on Brian Kelly because Kayshon wouldn't get his happy ass to rehab. It's not Brian Kelly's responsibility. I've gone through 3 years of my life in rehab facilities, not like drug rehab facilities, but you get what I mean. Nobody, the only person that I ever asked anything from a rehab was Tony Trombetta, my mom, and my dad, because there were times where I couldn't drive myself to go into rehab. You want to know why he's jumping a 29-inch vertical? You want to know why he's got a 29-inch vertical? He's not fucking going to rehab. But my God, blame Jaden Daniels for the drop pass. It was a bad throw. Bullshit. First-round picks make first-round plays against top 25 opponents. Name one he had last year. We talked about one of them in Georgia.